expression on the activities and the work of human rights defenders in general. So that's a good sign, but also it should still bother us because it's still possible that similar cases will happen in the future. So we need to address the root cause of the problem, which is an assessment. We need to have an assessment of the constitutionality of the Cybercrime Act's provisions, insofar as they may be impinging on the exercise of fundamental freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution and by PNG's human rights obligations.
What impact could the use of a law like this have on the freedom of speech or freedom of expression in PNG?
First of all, we need to raise people's awareness on the correct approach to the regulation of some human rights. In one of the court hearings that we observed, the judge actually took time to explain how freedom of expression works in the PNG, within the PNG legal framework. And he explained that freedom of expression is not an unlimited right. And that is true. From an international human rights law perspective, freedom of expression is one of those rights that can be regulated. But how do we do that correctly and consistently with the legal standards? First of all, there must be a clear law that allows for the regulation. Second, the regulation must be proportionate to the objective. In other words, it must not unnecessarily result or indirectly or directly result in the inability of human rights defenders, of ordinary people to express their views. And then third, there should be non-discrimination, so it should be applied to everyone. So these standards are quite clear. So in relation to the Cybercrime Act, we need to first examine, are the provisions of the Cybercrime Act on libel, and defamation, are they clearly defined? Is there any ambiguity that could cause confusion? In Eddie Tanago's case, we see that actually impacting the way law enforcement conducted their work. Second, we need to ask, is it proportionate? So look at the impact. If we see more and more prosecutions under the Cybercrime Act for defamation, for identity theft, and for other offenses, will that cause a chilling effect on journalists? Will it hinder the work of human rights defenders? Will it make whistleblowers think twice or thrice about coming out and exposing corruption?
From a human rights context, can you speak to why freedom of expression is important in a country like PNG?
Yeah, so freedom of expression is a fundamental human right. It's guaranteed under the Constitution of Papua New Guinea, and it's guaranteed under international human rights instruments because it serves a very important purpose. It promotes transparency. It enables the participation of ordinary